India is now officially aiming to clinch the tag of a space superpower. India's space agency ISRO is dreaming big. It announced some of its major plans in New Delhi today. And here's the headliner. India's very own space station. That is the next big project ISRO is working on. Early days, so the details are few and far between. But the confirmation itself deserves applause. Let's tell you what we know at this point. The project will be conceptualized in the next 5 to 7 years. ISRO is looking at setting up a small module in space. The space station will be used to carry out microgravity experiments. Basically, Indian astronauts will study weightlessness. ISRO says the work will begin after the current projects are completed, including the Gaganyaan mission slated for 2022. That's India's first manned mission to space. Preparations for it are on track, and Gaganyaan will be a stepping stone for the space station. The government said that ISRO plans to launch the Gaganyaan mission on the eve of the 75th Independence Day of India.
On the eve of the 75th Independence anniversary of India in 2022, ISRO has resolved to send its first human mission into the space. It could be even before 2022 or close to that. Finalization of the 2 to 3 persons or the astronauts, the crew who would be going for the mission would happen within next 6 months. And then, of course, the training period extends from 1.5 to 2 years, depending upon a number of factors, which also include the individual biological and adaptation factors.
The blockbusters begin next month with Chandrayaan-2, that's India's moon mission. The second sojourn will explore the southern part of the moon. India will be the first country to do this, to land near the south pole of the moon. It will be the most complex mission ever undertaken by ISRO. The Chandrayaan-2 will carry 14 scientific payloads. This includes instruments that will help ISRO understand the moon's composition and seismic activities better. Beyond the space station and the moon mission, some other projects are also in the works, and this includes a mission to the sun. It's called Aditya L1. ISRO is planning this mission for 2020. The main aim of this mission will be to study the sun's corona that has a major impact on climate change on Earth. And that's not all. ISRO is planning a mission to Venus too, details of which will be announced in the next few years. So we're not leaving anything out, are we? India's journey into the space has been a long and tedious one. India has faced criticism and even has been mocked at for its space programs, but India has not let its detractors get in the way of making history. Today, India stands tall in the club of big players in space exploration. Indian Space Research Organization ISRO has slowly but surely made India a space superpower. Here's the story.
It's been a journey that has seen multiple milestones along the way. India's dream of making its mark all the way in space was realized just 13 years after its independence. The year was 1962. Since then, there has been no looking back. But like every ambitious journey, India's journey to the space has not been an easy one. The clamor of skepticism and disapproval of India's space programs was focused on how expenditure on space was a waste for a developing country like India. But India has not let its detractors get in the way of making history. In 2008, India was on the moon, quite literally. It became the fourth country to register its presence on the moon on October 22, 2008, Chandrayaan-1 being India's first lunar probe. India was then set for its date with the Red Planet, and that encounter forced the entire world to sit up and take note of India's technical prowess. On November 5, 2013, India became the first country to reach Mars in its very first attempt, the first Asian country to do so. The total cost of India's Mars mission was $73 million. Even the Hollywood thriller Gravity had a bigger budget at $100 million. India did what the Americans, Russians and the Europeans couldn't: send a mission to Mars in its first attempt, and that too at a shoestring budget. But that didn't stop the Western media from taking a dig at India's tremendous feat. Who can forget this famous cartoon by the New York Times in 2014, mocking India's mission to Mars. The cartoon represented a man in a dhoti and a cow in tow knocking at the door of the quote-unquote elite space club in an effort to gain entry. The cartoon was published merely 4 days after India had successfully placed a spacecraft in orbit around Mars. But India once again silenced its detractors when it launched a record 104 satellites together from a single rocket in 2017. India broke all previous records held by any country. The development of India's indigenous cryogenic engine was a long pursuit that culminated with the launch of the GSLV Mark III. Today, India stands tall in the club of the big players in space exploration. ISRO has been building new, more powerful rockets and launching record number of spacecraft. The Indian Space Research Organisation set yet another milestone with the launch of a slew of military satellites. India is already gearing up for its second moon mission Chandrayaan-2 to be launched on 15 July with an expected soft landing on the moon on the 6th or 7th of September. The Chandrayaan-2 mission is the most complex mission undertaken by ISRO till date. ISRO aims to land the shuttle on the southern pole of the moon, an area that has not been explored by any country so far. The landing will also give ISRO the opportunity to name the site, once again marking India's place in the history of space exploration. What's special about this mission is that all 3 modules being used have been developed in India. And all thanks to India, NASA gets to hitch a free ride to the moon. The Chandrayaan-2 will be carrying payload for NASA free of cost. And that's not all. ISRO has many more missions lined up for the next decade. The missions would include the Mars Orbiter Mission 2 and Chandrayaan-3. Aditya L1 is a mission to study the corona of the Sun, which may be launched in mid-2020. The first manned space mission by 2022. A 7 interplanetary mission. Missions to Venus, Exposat planetary explorations are also among the cards. From conducting successful missions with some of the lowest budgets in the world to tapping India's indigenous scientific potential. A dream which began in a quaint church in Kerala has now made India a space superpower. And this is just the beginning. Bureau Report, Wion, World is One.
An otherwise calm Hong Kong has witnessed days of violent clashes. Protest leaders today announced that a mass rally is slated for Sunday. They have called for a citywide strike. This is a day after Hong Kong police cleared tens of thousands of protesters from the streets using rubber bullets and tear gas. More than 70 protesters were injured as they clashed with authorities. At the center of the tension is a proposed law, a law that Hong Kong residents feel will end up curtailing their freedom. But days of protests have yielded no results so far. The Hong Kong government has been unrelenting. It says it will not back down despite the widespread opposition. Look at those images. The government says it will continue to go ahead with the extradition bill. The Hong Kong legislature was supposed to debate the bill on Wednesday. They couldn't do that because the protesters did not allow the lawmakers to reach their workplace. A second reading of the bill was delayed for the second day today amid the threat of renewed protests. Meanwhile, China has said it strongly condemns the violent behavior of the protesters, even calling them quote-unquote organized riots, saying that it supports the Hong Kong government.
任何损害香港繁荣稳定的行为，都是香港主流民意所反对的。任何文明法治的社会都不会容忍破坏和平安宁、罔顾法纪的违法行为。中国中央政府强烈谴责各类的暴力行为，我们支持香港特区政府依法予以处置。我想，任何损害香港繁荣稳定的行为，都是香港主流民意所反对的。任何文明法治的社会都不会容忍破坏和平安宁、罔顾法纪的违法行为。
1 million protesters had taken to the streets on Sunday, and as the protest movement gathered momentum last week, social media served as a tool to mobilize demonstrators. In this case, it was Telegram, a popular encrypted messaging app, one of the top trending apps there. It has been used by protesters to avoid detection. But on Tuesday, an administrator of a large local Telegram group was arrested. He was accused of conspiring to cause public nuisance. But a bigger ploy seems to be at work here. The CEO of Telegram, Pavel Durov, has said that the app suffered a cyber attack, and not just any cyber attack. He called it, quote unquote, a state actor-sized cyber attack. He said the attack originated in China and coincided with protests in Hong Kong. Questions have been raised over whether Beijing tried to disrupt the protests in Hong Kong by attacking the very medium that was bringing people together. China naturally has brushed aside all such allegations. This is why the legislation is contentious and has people taking to the streets. It would, for the first time, allow extraditions to China, meaning it would allow suspects to be sent to mainland China for trial. Protesters fear this could be used to suppress opposition. It is a bill that raises concerns over basic human rights. Protesters are of the view that the amendments to the extradition bill would erode autonomous Hong Kong's civil liberties, and it would bring Hong Kong more decisively under China's control. Under its one country, two systems framework, Hong Kong was guaranteed its own social, legal and political systems for 50 years after it was handed over from British rule in 1997. But China's ruling Communist Party has been seen as failing to honor that agreement by forcing unpopular legal changes, such as this one. And that has brought Hong Kong to a standstill. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas. Thanks very much for watching.